I'm Rob. Welcome to the Queensland Shakespeare Ensemble's Understanding Shakespeare video series. The keys to transforming Shakespeare's dramatic text from old, flowery words to vibrant, contemporary speech lies in embracing the aesthetic features and stylistic devices characteristic of his writing. In this video, we explore one key aesthetic feature, Shakespeare's use of imagery. The next video in the series will examine a stylistic device, rhythm.
Hi, I'm Frankie. Before we look at imagery, we need to acknowledge some of the differences between early modern and contemporary English. These are simpler and less numerous than you might think. Shakespeare was not Old English.
What we gardena in her dagom theod kuninga thrum gefrunon hu de athelinga sellen fremedon.
That was Old English. Shakespeare spoke and wrote what's called early modern English. It differs no more from what we speak today than different dialects of today's English do from each other. Consider, for example, the differences between Northern Irish, Californian, or Australian. Okay, so Shakespeare does utilise some words in forms that we no longer use. Take, for example, thou, a word which means you when referring to one person only. So some simple translation knowledge is necessary. However, most of what we're doing to speak the words with clarity is working to understand the poetic images and why the poet has used these in particular. In our experience, when the speaker is clear about what they're saying, the hearer will understand it.
Most people have heard that Shakespeare invented lots of English words, words like assassination. We're not really sure how many he invented, but we do know that he invented a whole bunch of phrases that have become part of our everyday speech, like
my own flesh and blood.
More sinned against than sinning.
For goodness sake.
So, when audiences at one of Shakespeare's plays heard these new words or phrases for the first time, they had to figure out what they meant from the context or the actor's delivery. Remember that only half of London could read or write at that time, and most had no schooling at all. So if they could manage to make sense out of it, so can any of us. Try speaking my own flesh and blood as we do now. We know it means my children or my family, but we don't invest in the images.
My own flesh and blood.
Now try to speak it as though nobody has ever heard the phrase before, as if you're comparing your children to your own flesh and blood.
My own flesh and blood.
When it comes to understanding and unpacking the often complex images that Shakespeare uses, the most common way is to attempt to understand them intellectually, to discuss and think about the metaphors, similes, analogies, and other imagistic elements until we have some kind of a map between the image and what it stands for. And then, and only then, do we dare to speak it. But it can be useful to flip this and to work to understand why the poet uses the particular images by embodying them. Not only is it more fun, but it allows the possibility that a single image can work on multiple levels at once. We always begin by treating the language as if it is literally true. Here's part of a speech by Juliet from Romeo and Juliet. A literary approach might treat these references to night as personification, which is true, but then might go on to suggest that this is a metaphor of some sort. Let's hear it spoken.
Come, gentle knight, come, loving black-browed knight, give me my Romeo, and when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night, and pay no worship to the garish sun.
When Juliet speaks these lines, she has been secretly married to Romeo, but they haven't spent any time together since their wedding. She's waiting for nightfall, when Romeo will sneak into her room and they will consummate their marriage. As you can imagine, Juliet is excited, impatient, and probably a little nervous. Let's see what happens when we speak all the words with this generalized understanding of the character and context.
Come, gentle knight, come, loving black-browed knight, give me my Romeo. And when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night, and pay no worship to the garish sun.
So you can get the general state of Juliet's mind and emotions. What we don't get is why the poet has chosen to use these specific words and images. We don't get the nuance of Juliet's thought, just a general emotional wash. That's when Shakespeare becomes wordy. Why didn't he just have Juliet say, "Oh, I wish my husband were here so we could, you know?" Well, rather than just analysing the images, let's see what happens if the speaker embodies them. After all, Shakespeare wrote these words to be acted, not read and discussed. This exercise is for the speaker to increase their understanding. This part of the process is not about communicating that understanding to an audience yet. So you'll notice that Frankie isn't speaking to us this time.
Come, gentle night. Come, loving, black-browed night. Give me my Romeo, and when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he shall make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night, and pay no worship to the garish sun.
Pretty silly, but let's hear it again, this time, now that the speaker has embodied and visualized the images, adding in the idea that these images are no longer inside her head, but in the physical world. You'll notice, for example, that Juliet is truly personifying night, addressing night as if night were an intelligent being that could be reasoned with. So the images are not just in her head, but in the world around her.
Come, gentle night. Come, loving, black-browed night. Give me my Romeo. And when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he shall make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night and pay no worship to the garish sun.
Pause the video for a moment and discuss with whoever you're with, or just jot it down if you're on your own, how this awareness of the reality of the images has impacted your understanding and appreciation of the speech. This is one example of how unlocking Shakespeare is about learning to use the clues that are right there in the text, and images are a huge clue. There are lots of others: rhythm, alliteration and assonance, rhetoric, and so on.
If you found this video helpful, make sure you visit us on the web or follow us on social media for more resources and links to our youth holiday workshops and in-school workshops. For now, thanks for joining us.
We'll see you soon.